back, welcome to my preview and predictions for La Liga Game Week 15. Now, before we get into today's video, I want to start with just a little bit of a warning that videos like this are always very difficult off the back of a round of midweek fixtures that were all in the domestic cup. Obviously in Spain, it was the Copa del Rey. The reason I say this is because basically every single team that played in that competition entirely changed their starting lineup, and that affects obviously how they played, the results they get. For example, Espanyol, side playing very well in La Liga this season, they lost last night. I don't want you guys to take that information and assume that that now means that Espanyol have all of a sudden got rubbish because they lost in the cup last night. People tend to not realise how many changes are made in those cups, and that's why certain teams end up losing, and it should still be considered but not overly regarded as how it's going to affect their performances coming into the weekend. Also, I know there's a lot of you guys that will not just come to my videos in terms of these predictions. I know there's a lot of you that go to all these AI predictors out there right now. And what I also want to mention is that 5 different teams in La Liga were playing last night in the Copa del Rey. And if you're logging on to all of these AI predictors and that this morning, they're not even going to regard those matches at all. They're just going to not be up to date. So there may be injuries, suspensions, things that have come out of those matches last night that aren't even being considered by other people or these AI predictors that are out there. So I just want to say, just be aware that there's a lot of information that may not be out there right now because of the fixtures that have taken place this week. I've obviously taken the time to try and go through every one of those games, try and dig out as much information as possible, whilst also keeping in mind the fact that all of these teams have basically changed their entire lineups for these matches. So I just want all of that to be considered before we go into this video. And as always, if you enjoy these videos, let me know by dropping a like on this video, share it with a friend, subscribe to the channel if you're new around here, and put those notifications on because we're about to head into another European week, which once again means Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League prediction videos coming up for you next week. And if you want to gain access to even more previews and predictions, as always, you can hit that join button at the bottom of your screen right now to become a member of the channel, giving you access to Liga, Bundesliga and Serie A. Right, here are the fixtures that we have got taking place for you over the course of the weekend in Spain. Obviously, as I just said, we are talking about those Copa del Rey fixtures. I am going to mention how every single one of those teams got on over the course of those midweek games. But again, just take them all with a little pinch of salt if I say a particular team loses or a particular team wins, depending on their overall form in La Liga. Right, without any further ado, let's get straight into it. We've got one game for you taking place tonight, and we are starting off this La Liga weekend all the way at the bottom because we've got Real Oviedo taking on Mallorca. For Oviedo, it is now 8 games in a row without a win. They lost 2-0 to Atletico Madrid last weekend. For Mallorca, it was a 2-2 draw at home to Osasuna. A result they'll probably be a little bit disappointed with, and then they were victorious in the Copa del Rey on Tuesday night. In terms of the team news coming into this, Real Oviedo are going to be without Carmo. He went off injured last weekend, although one thing that should be noted is that Oviedo were actually knocked out of the Copa del Rey in the previous round, so their entire squad has had the entire week off. For Mallorca, unsurprisingly, and certainly not for the last time in this video, Mallorca did change their entire starting 11 for their Copa del Rey match, so you would expect them to rotate back round to their actual first team for this game. These two actually haven't played each other since way back in 2021. Back then, both matches were draws. In fact, none of the meetings between these two sides have ever been settled by more than 1 goal. So I do expect this opening game to be pretty close. It should also be noted that the last 2 matches that Oviedo played at home ended in 0-0 draws, but Mallorca have actually been scoring a fair few goals recently. Even though their results haven't been great, they still have been scoring goals. With all of that combined, a very difficult start to the weekend. I'm going to go for a 1-0 win to Mallorca tonight. On to Saturday then, and Saturday kicks off with 2 sides that were victorious at the weekend. Villarreal went to Real Sociedad and won 3-2, and Getafe were able to beat Elche 1-0 at home. They each then won in the Copa del Rey respectively in midweek, and both sides actually needed extra time to defeat their lower league opposition. Just another factor of the Copa del Rey is that some of these games did end up going to extra time, did end up going to penalties, and in both of these teams' cases, it meant that they had to rely on first-team players to come into the side late on in the second half or in extra time to get their results over the line. So for Villarreal and Getafe, they were more using of their first-team players because they wanted to get those results across the line in the Cups. With that all being said, over the 4 matches that these two sides have played respectively this week, there are actually no fresh injury concerns for either coming into this match. However, there is a suspension for Villarreal as Gay is suspended for picking up 5 yellow cards in the course of the La Liga season so far. The last 2 meetings between these sides on this ground have both ended in 1-1 draws, and it should absolutely be noted that Getafe have a very good away record in La Liga so far this season. However, Villarreal's home record is even better than that. They are 7 games unbeaten at home so far this season, winning 6 and drawing 1. So definitely Villarreal the favourites for this one. Don't rule out Getafe, but I'm going for a Villarreal victory. I'm going for 2-1 to them. Next up, it is Alaves who are taking on Real Sociedad. For Alaves, it is now 3 defeats in a row in La Liga, going down 3-1 against Barcelona last weekend. They now face a Sociedad side who, as we've literally just learnt about, lost last weekend at home to Villarreal, ending a pretty decent unbeaten run for them in La Liga over the past few weeks. As with our previous match, these two sides then went on to Copa del Rey action in midweek, and both were victorious once again. So that might build up some confidence, certainly for the home side, who needed that victory, although yet again, neither side needed to play their main players for that match. That being said, both sides are actually going to be without key players coming into this match. For Alaves, their holding midfielder Blanco is going to be out. He has picked up 5 yellow cards and he is suspended. Big loss for them. He's played basically every game so far this season. For Real Sociedad, it's their top scorer that is going to be missing. Oyarzabal has picked up a hamstring injury, which could see him out up until the new year. So it could be a real big loss for Sociedad there. In terms of the head-to-head record, it's actually pretty good in favour of Alaves as they won both home and away against Sociedad last season, but their recent form does concern me. They are obviously better at home. The question just really is, will Sociedad be able to get the goals without Oyarzabal up front? All in all, I think all 3 results are possible coming into this game, and as you know, when I'm not sure and I think all 3 results are possible, I only go for 1 result, and that is the draw. So I'm going for a 1-1 for Alaves and Sociedad. Now we move on to what is most certainly the biggest game of the weekend. We have got 5th place Real Betis taking on Barcelona. We'll start off with the league leaders who had to play 2 La Liga matches this week. A reminder to you all that the top 4 from last season, Barcelona, Athletic Club Bilbao, Atletico Madrid and Real Madrid, all had to play each other in La Liga this week as they got a bye from the next round of the Copa del Rey. So we're starting off with Barcelona, who won both of their La Liga matches this week, both by a scoreline of 3-1, beating Alaves, as we just mentioned, and then beating Atletico Madrid 3-1 as well, meaning it is 5 straight La Liga wins for the Catalans coming into this one. For Real Betis, they're not doing much worse. They are 8 games unbeaten in all competitions, and they won 2-0 at Sevilla last weekend, and then comfortably won in the Copa del Rey 4-1 in midweek. In terms of the team news for Real Betis, they certainly have the fitness advantage coming into this one, because despite making 10 changes to their starting lineup in midweek, you've got to say it's real testament to the squad depth of Real Betis right now. You see the lineup they put out in midweek, and you consider the amount of changes they made. Really strong side they still put out in midweek. So fair play to Betis for the squad that they have put together. However, there is one doubt for Betis coming into this match, and that is Anthony. He picked up a knock in that Copa del Rey game. A reminder, he was suspended last week in La Liga, which is why he then played in midweek. In terms of Barcelona, both Pedri and Dani Olmo went off in midweek against Atletico Madrid, but as things stand, both are expected to make it for this match. I think it's going to be a very interesting game. Last season, both games in the league ended in draws between these two sides. They did actually play each other in the Copa del Rey last season as well, though, with Barcelona winning on that occasion 5-1. The biggest prediction I can give you for this match is I expect there to be goals. There's always a lot of goals between these two sides. And at the moment, both sides are scoring pretty freely in all competitions. And both sides are also conceding a fair few as well. All in all, I'm going to go for a very narrow Barcelona win. I was very disrespectful to them when I said Atletico Madrid were going to go to Barca and get the victory in midweek. I'm not going to make that same mistake again here, but I am going to be a little bit cautious and go for a 3-2 win to Barcelona. I think it's going to be a very entertaining game. Which then takes us straight on to two more sides that were in La Liga action in midweek, which is Bilbao taking on Atletico Madrid. As we've just mentioned, Madrid going down 3-1 to Barcelona. For Athletic Club Bilbao, it was a 3-0 defeat at home to Real Madrid. So, rough week for them, having to host Real Madrid in midweek and then backing that up by having to host Atletico Madrid this weekend. And in terms of the form guide, it's very favourable for the away side coming into this. Yes, they did lose to Barcelona in midweek. However, that ended a run of 7 straight wins in all competitions. Whereas for Bilbao, losing again to Real Madrid means that since August, remember we're now in December, since August, the only teams Athletic Club Bilbao have beaten are sides that were in the relegation zone when they played them. So it's a very, very poor run for Bilbao over recent weeks. What you would say, though, is there's finally some good team news for the home side coming into this, as Sunshea is back from suspension and Inaki Williams is back in full training, which means that possibly for the first time in months, they could actually line up with Nico Williams, Inaki Williams and Sunshea all in their starting lineup coming into this match. For Atletico Madrid, it's bad news regarding their team news, as both Cardoso and Alex Baena went off with injuries against Barcelona, and Marcus Llorente is not fit enough to return for this match here. So, opportunity for Bilbao to make a mark here, but again, after the performance in midweek, it's very difficult to back them right now. Last season, Atletico Madrid won this fixture both home and away, both by the scoreline of 1-0. And even though I can provide a fair few reasons to suggest that Bilbao are going to get something from this match, right now, I don't have the confidence to say that that is going to happen. I think they've got a chance, but logic tells me that Atletico Madrid are still going to get the victory here. I'm going for a third consecutive 1-0 to Atletico Madrid. On to Sunday then, and Sunday starts off with Elche taking on Girona. Two sides that I would argue are sort of limping right now in La Liga. For Elche, it's 7 games without a win, but 3 of them have been draws, all at home. They lost to Getafe last week, but then they ended up winning in the Copa del Rey. For Girona, it's actually 3 games unbeaten in the league, but again, their last 2 results have ended up being draws. However, they were away to Real Betis and then at home to Real Madrid. So, as far as I'm concerned, that's actually pretty good going, even though they are still in the relegation zone at the moment. They did end up losing in the Copa del Rey in midweek, but it's obviously been very well documented how much of Girona's squad is injured at the moment. So when you consider that they changed their entire lineup for that Copa del Rey match, it's not really much of a surprise that they ended up losing. In terms of the team news, Grady Diangana went off last weekend for Elche and he was not in the squad for their victory in midweek. For Girona, Unahi is suspended. He's picked up 5 yellow cards. And really disappointedly from a Girona perspective, Abel Ruiz, who has just come back from injury, picked up another injury in the Copa del Rey in midweek and is going to be out for another month. Very, very disappointing for them. They really wanted him to be one of their main men going into this season. In terms of the head-to-head record, Girona have actually won the last 3 meetings between these two sides, most recently in January 2024. Elche, though, still unbeaten at home in La Liga this season. When you consider both of these sides are on a sort of prolific run of draws right now, that to me seems like the most likely scenario for this fixture. So that's what I'm going to go for. I'm going to go for a 1-1 for Elche and Girona. I don't expect this to be a very entertaining game. Don't rule out the 0-0. Don't rule out maybe like a 1-0 win either way. But I'm going to go for the 1-1 draw. I think that's the most likely outcome to me. Next up, we have Valencia taking on Sevilla. And this is why I hate having to do videos like this, because these two sides literally played at 8 o'clock last night in the Copa del Rey. So it's a very, very quick turnaround for these two sides. In terms of the league form coming into this, for Valencia, it's actually 3 without a defeat. They got a 1-1 draw at Rayo Vallecano last week, Whereas for Sevilla, it's back-to-back defeats in La Liga, losing 2-0 at home to Real Betis in the Seville derby last weekend. Fans not going to be very happy about that one, that is to be sure. Last night, both sides ended up winning in the Copa del Rey, although it should absolutely be noted that Valencia needed extra time to get their win. So you consider how late that game was already, then it goes to extra time. They have to bring on first-team players to get the result in the end. It does mean that Valencia are arguably at the ever so slight disadvantage coming into this match in terms of overall player fitness. Regardless, though, there are still some team news things to consider because Sevilla are going to be without Romero. He is suspended. There is one potential missing player for Valencia. I'm hoping that people that know the ins and outs of the La Liga rules will point me in the right direction when it comes to this. Last night, in extra time, Santa Maria was sent off for Valencia. Now, I don't know if that means they then get suspended for the next round of the Copa del Rey, or it means they get suspended for this match. So I'm just going to put it out there as a notice to say that Santa Maria was sent off last night in the Copa del Rey and could be suspended for this match. Right now, it's not telling me whether he is or he isn't. So please, people that know Spanish rules, let me know that one down in the comments section below. In terms of the head-to-head record, Valencia actually have a very good record against Sevilla. They are 4 games unbeaten against them, winning here 1-0 last season. All in all, I actually think Valencia are the favourites to win this one once again. Not going to go for the 1-0 though. I'm going to go for a 2-1. Like I say, 3 games unbeaten in La Liga. I think they're going to get the result in this one, so I'm going for 2-1 to them. Weirdly, as we move on to Espanyol taking on Vallecano, these two sides also played last night in the Copa del Rey, although they played 2 hours earlier than Valencia and Sevilla last night, and they're going to be playing 2 hours later than Valencia and Sevilla on Sunday. Very, very weird how they've decided to put the fixtures out in that order. But here we are. For Espanyol, their incredible season in La Liga continued last weekend with a 1-0 away win to Celta Vigo. A very, very good result for them. For Vallecano, it is 3 straight draws in the league, drawing 1-1 at home to Valencia last time out. So all in all, you would probably make Espanyol the slight favourites for this match. In terms of the midweek fixtures, though, in terms of those matches last night, for Espanyol, it was defeat, as we mentioned at the start of the video. Whereas for Vallecano, for the umpteenth time this season, they did what they do best. Got a stoppage time equaliser. That resulted in the game going to extra time. And then in the end, it was Vallecano who ended out coming out on top. Again, that does mean they had to call upon regular first-team players to force the extra time and then win in extra time. So another reason to think Espanyol are to be the favourites for this, because even though they lost, they didn't have to expend their first-team players for that long in that match. In terms of that team news, though, coming into this one, there is definitely still some team news because Calero went off last weekend for Espanyol and was not in the squad at all for them last night. Whereas for Vallecano, Mendy is a doubt, having gone off last week, and Cease is suspended for this match after a red card a couple weeks ago. In terms of the head-to-head, very good for the home side once again. Espanyol have won the last 3 meetings between these two sides, including a 2-1 victory on this ground last season and a 4-0 victory away at Vallecano last season. I'm backing that run of form to continue here. They're having a fantastic season, and I think they're going to get another victory here. I'm going for 2-1 to Espanyol, which then means our final game on Sunday is Real Madrid taking on Celta Vigo. Real Madrid back to winning ways after 3 consecutive draws by getting the victory 3-0 away at Bilbao. And it's actually incredible how stats can be manipulated to mention certain things, because that actually means that Real Madrid are now 5 games unbeaten. But you consider that 3 draws in a row are in the middle of that, it suddenly doesn't sound so impressive, but it is still 5 games unbeaten for Real Madrid. They now face a Celta Vigo side who have had a very rough couple of weeks, it has to be said. They lost to Ludogorets in the Europa League, then lost to Espanyol at home last week in La Liga, and then had to go to extra time and even penalties to win last night in the Copa del Rey. So a lot of things going against Celta Vigo coming into this match. Again, a side that had to rely on first-team players off the bench just to force extra time and then go all the way to penalties, which of course they did win. And that game was a day after Real Madrid's league game against Athletic Club Bilbao. But of course, Real Madrid used their first team in that match, so fitness and things like that this is why I hate weeks like this, where you've got some teams playing uber competitive matches, some teams playing less competitive matches. It just gets a little bit blurry along the way. In terms of that team news, though, bad news for Real Madrid fullbacks, as both Ferland Mendy and Trent Alexander-Arnold are both confirmed to be out for at least a month, likely 2 months. No fresh concerns for Celta Vigo, certainly in terms of injuries, but like with the Santa Maria situation in the Valencia game, Dominguez was sent off last night for Celta Vigo, so I don't actually know if that means he misses this game or he misses the next round of the Copa del Rey. But again, just letting you know, he was sent off last night. Head-to-head record, very, very strong in favour of Real Madrid, as you would expect. We probably wouldn't expect it to be this good. Real Madrid have won the last 11 meetings in a row between these two sides, both home and away. Surely it's going to be 12 out of 12 here, and I'm going for a 3-1 win to Real Madrid, which then means we have one game left, the Monday Night Football, which is Osasuna taking on Levante. 6 without a win in the league for both of these sides coming into this match. However, for Osasuna, it's only 4 defeats out of 6, drawing with Mallorca last week. For Levante, it's 5 defeats out of those 6, including a defeat last time, losing their last 4, actually, 2-0 to Bilbao. It was last weekend. They did, however, both win midweek in the Copa del Rey, and unsurprisingly, both of these sides rotated their entire lineups for these matches. We do have some injury concerns for both, though, as for Osasuna, Barja is out for them, and for Levante, they look likely to be without De La Fuente and Espi for this match. In terms of the head-to-head record, these two sides actually haven't met since 2022, so we can't really rely too much on that metric either. This is actually a really, really horrible one to call. Like, you look at the form card of these two teams, it's not looking great right now. What I would say is Osasuna have been a lot better at home than they have been away from home, which is something to say considering they are down in 17th place. So considering that they are on the ever so slightly better form, and they are the side at home, I am going to give them the victory over Levante here. And I'm going to round off today's video with a 2-1 victory to Osasuna. Before I leave you, as always, we've got to round up what you guys have been saying over on the community page regarding these fixtures, and you have gone for the following. The majority have gone for Mallorca to beat Oviedo tonight. The majority have gone for Villarreal to beat Getafe. Smaller majority, but a still majority nonetheless, for Sociedad to beat Alaves. A lot of you have gone for Barcelona to go to Betis and get the win. I thought that would be a little bit closer than it was. Majority think Atletico Madrid are going to beat Bilbao. Close between Elche and Girona, but the majority have gone for an away win there, which would end Elche's unbeaten start to the season. Majority have gone for Valencia to beat Sevilla, but that is by far the closest of the day, 40, 28 and 32. Majority think Espanyol are going to beat Vallecano. Basically, everyone thinks Real Madrid are going to beat Celta Vigo. And then finally, the majority of you have gone for Osasuna to beat Levante. As always, let me know all your thoughts down in the comment section regarding these matches. And in terms of community predictions, a reminder that with European football returning next week, over the course of the next few days, you're going to start seeing those predictions coming out for Champions League, Europa League and Europa Conference League. So make sure you are checking out the community page to have your say on all of those matches. As always, link to it will be available in the description and in the pinned comment of this video. Before I leave you, let's pop my predictions back up on the screen for you one last time and say a massive thank you very much for watching. As always, Premier League predictions will be coming for you in just 1 hour's time, so make sure you've got those notifications turned on so you don't miss that video coming out for you in just a few minutes. As always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you very soon.